y'all, welcome back. I asked you on Instagram what questions you had. Have you seen influencers misbehaving? Have you seen misinformation? What wild things have you noted on the internet or in the pregnancy, gynecology, period-related field that you are curious about? And I got so many questions that I could not even begin to answer them all on my Instagram stories. So follow me there. I will answer some of them there. My new setup, I'm coming to you live from a closet, and also I'm not live, but it is a closet, a very cool looking closet now. I hope you like the new setup. I will try to remember how to make videos. And if you're not subscribed and you want to be, I'd love for you to subscribe. I bet some of you think you're subscribed and you're not, so have a little look-see and see. I guess if you're new here, I'm MDJ. I talk about periods, pregnancy, and everything in between. I am a practicing OB-GYN, and apparently I don't know how to YouTube anymore. Let's answer some questions. There are lots of people asking about taking away the toast, which is apparently something that I had no idea was happening, but there is apparently one district health board that has decided that they're not going to provide toast for new postpartum parents anymore, which a lot of people are up in arms about. And I was very confused. I didn't know that that had happened. But there were some people saying it's a cost-cutting measure, to which I was like, what in the world? Why would only postpartum need cost-cutting measure, and why toast? Like, that's the cheapest thing you can buy in New Zealand is toast. Why is that what they decided? I don't know. Anyway, I think they've walked it back, but apparently it was a big scandal that I've completely missed. My hospital still has toast. So if you have a baby at the hospital I work at, you can still have toast. A couple of Aussie states are starting to approve contraceptive pills to be over-the-counter. Thoughts? I have discussed in a whole video over-the-counter contraceptives, and I won't rehash the whole thing here. In general, I am very much in favor of over-the-counter contraceptive pills. The data we have on that from a safety and efficacy standpoint is incredibly supportive. And the data would say that if given the ability to go through a checklist of whether or not oral contraceptives are safe for you, that a person is more likely to screen themselves more effectively than they are to be screened by a doctor or advanced practice provider effectively. So I am in support of over-the-counter contraceptives. Trump supporting IVF for votes. Any clue if he could do it? This is an interesting topic, and I'm not going to do the whole thing here because it could honestly be a whole video. There's a few problems with that. One, I don't think that most people in his camp, including him, are for universal healthcare coverage. So if you were going to force insurers to pay for IVF, you'd have to go through the same legislative channel essentially as Obamacare. I just don't know, like, logistically how that would ever fit into the precedent of what they like to do. And then if we just ignore all of that and look at this from a standpoint of where we're at with reproductive health care in the US, what we need is protections in place for reproductive health care access, not funding for IVF. That is also important. There's a whole lot that goes into that. Even in places like New Zealand, where I currently am living, it's not publicly funded for everybody. So you'd have to figure out the exact parameters on that. I think it should be funded more than it is. Absolutely 100%. And I think that being less wealthy should not be a reason that you can't access reproductive health care that you need, including in vitro fertilization and or IUI or any kind of assisted reproductive therapies. However, right now, the problem we are facing is that if states' rights is how we go forward with abortion legislation, a lot of those states are pushing to personhood laws, right? And a personhood law essentially decides that every embryo from conception is a human with individual rights that cannot be superseded. And if we start personhooding every embryo, IVF is out the door. Because in IVF and in IUI, to be perfectly clear, embryos are made. Some of them are not healthy enough to transfer, or they don't look good enough to transfer, or you just have a whole bunch and some of them are frozen, and you lose the ability to indefinitely freeze, discard, or otherwise destroy embryos when you put into place personhood laws. So it doesn't matter what kind of funding he says he will support. I am very skeptical that he would actually do that or even have the ability to with the way that he has done things in the past. However, even if we operate from the idea that he would, the bigger issue right now is we have allowed states to essentially make laws that could and will make IVF illegal anyway. It's a lot. I should make a whole video on that, honestly. I had my tubes removed, but I'm still very nervous about not being on birth control. Removing tubes is called a bilateral salpingectomy, and it is well over 99+% effective. Failure rate of removing the tubes is incredibly low and can be relied upon for contraception. That doesn't mean it never fails. There are rare instances where conception can occur. It's much more likely that that would be some form of an ectopic pregnancy, if that's the case. But the failure rate is incredibly low. And if someone was relying on, I don't know, an oral contraceptive pill before, they certainly can rely on a bilateral salpingectomy or tubal ligation or whatever kind of permanent sterilization has been provided to them when they went through that process. How do you spot shady health influencers? This is a great question. I don't know that you always can, but generally if you look at something and you think, that seems too good to be true, or there's no nuance in this discussion. They seem to be having a very complex discussion without any kind of, let's look at it from this angle, let's look at it from that, let's learn. Like, if it's like people making absolute statements, sometimes not really either someone that knows enough about a topic to be making any kind of statement on it, or they're trying to mislead you. If it seems too good to be true. If they're using these kind of strange words that just really kind of skirt around what their actual expertise is. Hormone expert, what is that? Hormone coach, period coach, right? These are things that people just create. Just be wary. If they're trying to sell you something and that thing is directly linked to the thing they're trying to make you believe, so they're trying to make you believe that you should go off of your birth control and they're selling you a guide for how to do it. That's a bit shady. I will link below a few videos that I've made on influencers and viral birth control myths and hormone hoax, like hormone expert hoax, people selling things on the internet, and those have way more information on how to do that. I've seen people saying that we need to accept period pain. If so, how much pain is too much before I need to see a doctor? If your period is interfering with your ability to live, laugh, and love, that was stupid. Why did I say that? To live your life, then you should bring it up with your doctor. And what that is for you is going to be different than what it is for me and what it is for the next person. So basically this is all up to you. If you have cramping and it's interfering with your ability to concentrate, do things you want, hang out with your friends, you're changing plans because if it's your period's so heavy that you're doing that, anything that's interfering with your life with regards to your period is not normal and you should talk to us about it. Let me clarify, that doesn't necessarily mean it's something terribly is wrong. It just means let's talk about it and see if you want to do anything to try to make that better for you. How should you respond to people who say people just use abortions as birth control? My response to that would be, there's absolutely no evidence to support that statement. It doesn't make logical sense that people would do that because that would be painful, expensive, and honestly a pain in the ass. And you're allowed to believe things that are not true, but the facts don't align with the words coming out of your mouth. Oh my gosh, I could make hours and hours of videos based on this. Influencers saying C-sections aren't giving birth. That's so dumb. That is so dumb. How do we have all these people in the world then who never were birthed? Did they get a birthday? Do my kids get a birthday? Should I take their birthday away? Obviously, C-section is giving birth. That's so dumb. If people are saying that, tell them to close their mouths or say it somewhere else where you can't hear them. There's actually quite a few questions about free birth, and I've been thinking about making a long form video about this because one, I really enjoyed making the long form documentary on Andrea Yates, and you all seem to like it as well. If you haven't seen that video, go watch it and or just listen to it like while you're driving to work or cleaning your house. It's a very interesting listen. But free birth is the idea of people going through pregnancy with, and delivery specifically, no help. Meaning no doctor, no midwife, no doula, no professionals helping at all. And also no non-professionals helping. I take issue with this because that's never how it's been ever in the past, but there is a whole heap of other reasons that that's not something that I think is safe or reasonable. I understand mistrust of the medical community, and like if you want to find a midwife or someone who does things in a way that you believe is better but has credentials to safely care for you, great. I am all for that. I actually think that obstetricians should not be taking care of low-risk pregnancies at all, ever. That's a stupid idea, but welcome to the US. That's just what we do. But I think the idea of free birth is really interesting from a standpoint of kind of where it started, how it became a big thing, and also the remarkable privilege that goes behind the ability to call having no birth assistant, no medical care whatsoever, no midwife, no help at all, free birth, rather than lack of access to healthcare, right? So this is an inherently privileged thing to choose to forego things that make your birth safer. Should it be illegal? No, I am all for personal freedoms in choosing these things, but I do think there's a lot to unpack with regards to what is the tradition going into this. People have always had birth attendants, whether it's the village women who've had babies coming to your birth, or midwives, or doctors, or whoever. Like, it's always been something that people did with other people around, not by themselves. So that is a historical point. And then just in general, obvious problems with completely forgoing medical care, all of the things that could go wrong there, and having no oversight. Yeah, I think actually we should add this to the list for a long form video. Do you think that would be interesting? Let me know if you have any questions about free birth or know any interesting facts. Put that in the comments below, because I think that would be a really interesting long form video, because there is a lot to unpack with regards to the history of that and the movement and how it's kind of unfolded, as well as some of the really incredible harms that have come from it. Will you return to the US? I am still very happily living in Aotearoa, New Zealand. I love my job here. I love the way that medical care is delivered here. It is not without flaw. The system here also has its struggles, but compared to the way I used to work back home and how fulfilling that work was compared to the way I work here and how fulfilling that is just so much better. I love the team that I work with. I love the work I do here. And I really like the maternity care system with midwives and how well we work together here. I just really enjoy it. In addition to that, my kids are quite happy. They really like school here. And I don't know. Yeah, we're happy here for now. But yeah, at some point, we will come back to the US. I just don't know when that will be. We came for a year and we've been here for almost 3. Can VBAC candidates be induced for medical reasons? Yeah, you can be induced with a VBAC. Now, importantly, as with all topics regarding VBAC, this is all going to be very provider dependent, because resources in hospitals really makes it a big deal when, how, and who can offer VBAC. You really should be in a hospital facility that has 24/7 anesthetics and in-house obstetrics, meaning I don't have to come in from home if there's an emergency, and neither does the anesthesiologist. That's really important. And one of the reasons that all doctors do not offer VBAC in the US is that they don't always have access to those things. There's a lot of people who are just doing outdated medicine and don't offer them. And sometimes people who aren't doing outdated medicine can't offer them because they're in a practice with people who are doing outdated medicine, and they will refuse to take care of the patient if they come in while they're covering call for you. So it's very complex. But in general, if you just look at the medical data, yes, you can safely induce somebody who is having a TOLAC, or trial of labor after cesarean. VBAC is vaginal birth after cesarean. And we would have certain ways that it's safer and less safe to do an induction. That's probably not worth going through in detail here. Maybe a whole video at some point on that too. But yeah, you can be induced, and how that happens and who's willing to do it and who's able to have the resources to do it will vary by who's taking care of you. Not a question, but I absolutely love the short hair. Thank you. I got it cut, must have been like November. And I have really liked it too. You guys just don't know that I got it cut that long ago because I disappeared for 8 months. Tampons and harmful chemicals is a really common theme, and I am not going to dive into that here because it's not easy to answer. In general, I would say don't panic. You don't have to immediately change anything that you're doing, but we should do a deep dive on that. That would also be interesting. I feel like this entire video is now just me saying, oh, we should do a whole video on that. This is actually a really good question. What C-section rate for a doctor or hospital is too high? Does C-section rate matter? This is really complex, okay? Because you could see a C-section rate for hospital A and for hospital B, and A's might be 33% and B's might be 5%. And if you just look at that, you go, oh, I'm gonna deliver at hospital B. I'm less likely to have a C-section. But what if hospital B just doesn't usually have anyone there who can do C-sections? So if you need a C-section, you have to be airlifted to hospital A. Or maybe hospital B only takes care of really low risk patients because they don't have people who can do C-sections. So all of the higher risk for C-section patients go to hospital A. That doesn't necessarily mean that just because of the C-section right there, you're at an increased risk of C-section. It depends why the C-section rate is high. And that's real hard to unpack. With regards to individual providers, there's the same thing, right? So maybe my partner's C-section rate is 10% and mine is 25. Does that mean that I do a bunch of unnecessary C-sections? It could. Or does it mean that I have more complex patients who are more likely to need C-sections? It could. Or does it mean that in my practice, I'm the one who does all of the repeat C-sections that are scheduled? It might. So I don't think you can ever just look at this number itself for a hospital or a doctor and decide if that's what you want to do. You have to decide that based on the fit of you with that doctor and talk to them about what their philosophy is on this. You know, find someone where you can have that conversation and feel like you're being listened to and your opinion is being valued. How often after hysterectomy should you do a Pap smear? This is a tough question because it largely depends on your history. If you've ever had abnormal smears, if you've always had normal ones, if you've never had a smear done at all, why was your hysterectomy done? Do you still have a cervix, or was the hysterectomy done including the cervix? There's lots of different types of hysterectomy where some of them would include taking out the cervix, most of them, and some of them wouldn't. So all of these things go into answering that. In general, if somebody has a hysterectomy and their cervix is removed also, and they've been screened in the past, they have up-to-date screening, there's never been abnormals, everything was fine at the time of the hysterectomy, and the hysterectomy had nothing to do with the cervix having abnormal cells on it before that, then you may not need screening at all moving forward. But it's very person dependent. So that's something you have to talk to your doctor about before you decide what is best for you. I heard an influencer saying that an epidural isn't a natural birth. Oh, Lord. I hate that. Like, what is natural? You're hemorrhaging and then we just let you keep doing that and die? Like, what does it mean? What is natural? Why do we want it? We can't even define it. Why is it good or bad? This is so silly. Your birth is whatever you want it to be. That's it. And natural is whatever you consider that to be. And also not always superior to not natural. I actually quite like, not dying because of not natural interventions that can save my life. Or even just not hurting because of not natural interventions that keep me from having pain. Why has the IUD become more popular? It's a good one to end on. IUD has probably become more popular because it is something that over time we have learned a lot more about. So it was at first that IUDs had a lot of complication risk, and then we didn't recommend them for people who had never had a child. And then, all of this changed. But we know they are the most reliable form of contraception because you can't forget it and you can't have it not be used sometimes like a condom. You can't throw the pill up, whatever. So it is highly reliable. It doesn't have to be remembered. It doesn't have a very high rate of human error. So obviously you could forget to replace it and leave it longer than it's recommended for, and then it could stop working to prevent pregnancy and you can have an accidental pregnancy. But all in all, the overall failure rate is incredibly low and it's easy to use. I think it's become a lot more popular because that convenience factor is helpful. Another reason that you're hearing a lot more about it is because people are talking about it online, but there's also a hormonal and a non-hormonal version. So people who would like to have long-acting, reliable contraception but don't want to use hormones, have an option with the copper IUD. People who would rather their periods be lighter and they can have a reliable form of contraception as well. They can use a hormonal IUD. It's more common that you hear about it now because we use it for treating heavy periods and painful periods and things like that. So there's a lot of ways that the IUD is used that's not just contraception, and it is a highly reliable form of contraception. A whole video on IUDs would be great as well. Well, thanks for coming, guys. I'm really happy you were here. I hope that in this video you learned something more than just I need to make a video on every topic on the planet. I forgot how to make videos, so I'm just gonna turn the camera off. Bye.